Hello. Welcome to the Empowered Artist Collective podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Apple, a multi-hyphenate actor, educator, acting coach, writer, dog mom, and founder of this vibrant community that champions artists as they carve out their own unique paths in this wild industry. Whether you're just starting out, in the thick of it, or seeking a bit of artistic fuel to expand your toolbox, you're in the right place. In this space, we'll have honest conversations, share actionable strategies, tips, and resources, and delve into the messy yet beautiful journey of living a sustainable, creative life. We unmask the reality of life as an artist, from navigating career highs and lows to nurturing your full human well-being. I chat with women and non-binary guests who share their personal stories, helpful learnings, and hearts to help you unlock your artistic potential, expand your knowledge, and show up fully and fearlessly in your artistry and daily life. Before we dive into this week's conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If today's chat resonates with you, please leave us a review. It helps us reach even more incredible artists just like you. And hey, feel free to spread the love. Share this podcast with a friend or post it on your socials, making sure to tag at Empowered Artist Collective and at @JenniferApple_ so we can chat with you there. All right, grab a cup of something cozy, settle in, and let's get to it. My dear listeners, this week marks our 135th and final episode of Season 3. I still pinch myself that we have grown into 3 seasons, 135 episodes, and a community of listeners who show up with such care and curiosity. It's beyond what I could have ever dreamed. This season has been filled with such generosity from the guests who have offered their time, wisdom, vulnerability, tools, truths. We've shared tricks, dispelled myths, and held space for the messy, beautiful, complicated journey of being a creative human. And together, we've created a library of conversations that's here for you whenever you need it. This podcast is meant to be a resource you can return to again and again, to revisit an episode that resonated, to share with someone who might need it, or to spark curiosity about something you wanted to learn more about. And even though we're going on a hiatus, please never hesitate to let us know what episodes have stayed with you or what you'd love for us to explore in the future. Your reflections help shape this podcast. So, before we dive into this final conversation of the season, I want to ask a small favor. If this podcast has moved you in any way, would you please take a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify? A few words, a 5-star rating. It helps more than I can accurately say. The more this work is shared, the more artists we can reach and uplift. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this community. I am endlessly grateful. And now, our final episode of Season 3, as part of our Casting Director miniseries, I sat down with Emmy-nominated independent casting director Bess Fifer to dig into the realities, responsibilities, and rewards of the work. Bess shares candid insights about navigating the freelance hustle as a casting director, redefining success on your own terms, and why even with hit shows like Severance on her resume, stability in this industry isn't guaranteed. Together, we discuss practical tools for actors, from how to approach self-tapes with a strong perspective to the importance of framing and sound to why asking thoughtful questions can actually signal professionalism rather than overstepping. This episode closes out Season 3 with a reminder that building a creative life is about finding your version of success, showing up with curiosity and generosity, and trusting that good work will always be recognized. Enjoy. Bess Fifer, welcome to the space.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
For anybody who does not know you, who are you today?
Today, I am an independent casting director based out of New York City, or specifically Jersey City, New Jersey. And I have been a casting director for about 20 years. This is my 20th year. And I'm just happy to still be working.
Yeah. And you're working on some incredible projects that we 100% will get into. It's really such a gift to have you in this space and the breadth of work that you have done. And 20 years is no small feat. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That.
Thank you. Yeah.
I feel like to move through 20 years of this industry, and certainly the last, 5 to 10 years of what this industry has been, and to make it out on the other side thriving is like the biggest of feats. And so I'm curious to hear for you, I mean, starting from the beginning of your career and like why casting directing specifically, but the way that it's morphed over 20 years.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I think like a lot of people fell into casting, although I guess I fell in an interesting way because I was in graduate school, kind of deciding what to do and what kind of professional path to take, and knew that I wanted to be in the arts. Pretty sure I wanted to stay in the arts, and I took an
What was
aptitude
your graduate
test.
school for?
I
It
was
was
studying. I was studying drama, but my
okay.
undergraduate had actually been in exercise science.
Oh,
Because I, being a practical, grounded person, was like, "Oh, you need to go and like get a serious job." And
yeah.
so for me, I was like, "Well, I'll go do this serious thing, but ideally, I'm going to go and then work with dancers or work with actors." And got my undergrad and was like, "Oh no, actually, so you have to go and spend another $100,000, $200,000 to go to PT school."
Yeah.
And I just was like,
No.
actually started having panic attacks about that. So I was like, I'm going to do some graduate school. I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to do some drama studies. And I say drama studies because I wasn't at a place that I was going to be able to get a master's degree, right? So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, let's just switch gears and dig in a little bit. And so I took an aptitude test while I was basically doing a day job trying to get office management skills. It was a very generic aptitude
Hmm.
test. Like, it wasn't industry specific, it was life specific. It was 750 questions. I
Wow.
think it was like $75. It took me like 3 hours to complete. And casting director came up on the ends of the aptitude test, which to this
Wow.
day, I'm like, who put this in there? And like,
Yeah.
can I send you a thank you? Because I
Yeah.
didn't know what it was. I had no idea.
Wow.
I was like, what's a casting director?
Hmm.
And my husband, who had spent, more than a handful of years in LA in the industry before we met, and he switched gears to music, but didn't really know much. He'd never really worked directly with a casting director, but he basically was like, I don't know, people seem to really have trouble with them, and they seem to be kind of unhappy people.
Oh no.
I was
Oh
like,
no.
oh, okay. But as the more I learned about the profession and like what the job was, which is essentially working day to day to actors, which actually has now changed,
Hmm.
being in the room day to day, directing actors, dissecting a script, working with a director and a writer to see what the fleshed out real life person of the person on the page is. And I was just like, this sounds fantastic, mainly just because if there's one thing that I've always had, it's opinions. So I
Yes.
am, this sounds really great. And so, yeah, that was really kind of, it's all I've ever done. And moved to New York with that purpose of like, let's see if I can do this. And I spent, a couple months in an agency and both as an intern and then as an assistant to kind of just like get in where I could and get some
Hmm.
industry experience. Essentially, that was then how I got an internship in casting, and basically worked for free for about a year. But it got me in the door, and thankfully, internships are not things that are free anymore, and we don't have all of that
Hmm.
because it is absolutely for the privilege to be able to sit and work for
Yeah.
free in order to break into an industry. So, knock on table. I'm glad it's over, right? Like, I'm glad that is
Yeah.
not a way that people get to break in. There are more classes. There are, college classes. There are apprenticeships as opposed to
Yeah.
internships. But that was how I got in, and essentially convinced them to hire me as their office manager, and then worked my way into being a casting assistant and being a casting associate before kind of being like, I need to go out and see. I think it's important, like, you may study, a certain technique of acting, but you should also check out others because you don't
Hmm.
know what's going to be the one that helps you access.
Correct.
Same thing with dance, right? You might be an incredible tap dancer, but who knows what you could do in tap if you learned more about modern or if you incorporated
Yeah.
more jazz or blah blah blah. I don't know. And so, yeah, that was kind of my decision to be more of an independent casting director, and then work with a bunch of different people who became mentors or just, moments in time that I kind of built the way that I like to do my job. Some things I said, great, this works for me. Other things I said, absolutely not. And, it kind of came up with my own business model based on the things that I saw and liked, or saw and saw that worked, or saw and saw that didn't work.
Yeah. I'm just still in awe about the fact that casting director 20 years ago was on an aptitude test. That's wild to me.
Yeah, technically it was 2004. So it was even, yep. Yeah,
because even now in the zeitgeist, like people, everybody knows the casting director at this point. There's like, oh, the casting director, but they're not. There's still finally the recognition of like, awards are a whole other conversation, but like finally now it's like, oh, casting directors maybe should be rewarded for the work that they did to have all these people in the movie or TV show that you're seeing. Like,
who are you looking at? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Specifically.
Listen, my own parents don't know what I do, so it's just why.
Same, actually, though. As an actor, they're like, this is still a career. This isn't, no, they've come around. But it is this thing that, like, early 2000s in my mind, that was like a thing that they put up there is kind of incredible. And I really applaud you for recognizing that, like, okay, I got to like figure it out. What is working? What isn't? What do I like? What do I not like? And then you can take your own model. And so I'm curious for you, what would you say, you refer to it as your business model. Like, what would you say is the special sauce for the way that you work?
Oh gosh, my special sauce. Part of the reason that I have remained as an independent was because I actually do love to collaborate and want to be able to collaborate freely. And the other reason that I've actually remained an independent is to keep my overall overhead small, which also means that I don't need the same amount of workload as some other people need at this point in time, because I have a long-term associate, Aaron Schoonover, and he's amazing, but he's also free. He's not, I don't own him. He's not my employee. I don't pay him. Mm-hmm. If he wants to work for somebody else, he can go and do that. I'm not trying to carry people, an office, all of these other things. And I think these are some older models that are still being carried, that in this new era of the business isn't sustainable. These aren't models that people can inherit and keep going with ultimately. And now, especially in this era of, we're talking about how things have changed in 20 years. I've seen us become union members, in which we get our benefits and our health and pension from our projects and from the work that we work on, like actors do and like other department heads and union members do, and not from our office or a place that we work. And so those models that are the idea of having a group of casting directors and a group of staff and who all work together is a lovely human idea, but is not sustainable in an overhead setting. And I think leads to a need for a quantity of work to sustain. And so I think we start to lose ourselves as artists a little bit if you're not actually able to be specific, in that less is more, right? Can I focus myself on the 2-3 projects that I have, or am I trying to spread myself across a multitude of things and sustain because I need to? And so for me, it's almost an avoidance of that. How do I remain somebody with low overhead, especially in a time when we've seen both a huge influx in jobs and now a complete retraction in jobs. And so I think that's kind of, it's about staying small and specific, and keeping a hand in what I got into it in the first place, which was the art and the privilege of being a casting director, is that we populate the world, right? That you see on TV. And I take that as a huge responsibility, because it's up to me. And granted, I don't make the decisions at the end of the day, but the cohesion of the world is up to me. And it's up to me to make sure that people see themselves in the world that we've created, because that will create and lead to the success of the show.
Hi, actor friends. Talking to you. If finding the perfect monologue has you feeling stuck, I've got just the thing. I put together a free monologue selection toolkit just for you. It's packed with resources, free and paid options, plus tips for choosing, editing, and customizing pieces to showcase you. Head over to jenniferapple.net/freebie and stop avoiding the auditions that ask for a monologue or waiting for the perfect piece to simply fall into your lap. Dive into this free toolkit that I set up just for you that'll set you up to feel agency over your process and artistry. That's jenniferapple.net/freebie and get started on finding your next go-to monologue. I'm here for the strategy around your work, and I think you're naming something that is maybe some people try to bury the lead around, like, no, this has to be done in order for me to like make the living. And maybe it doesn't sound, this isn't pretty to talk about, but like we have to keep it small and tight and less is more so that I can continue working on the things that I want to work on. And so I appreciate you naming that, just because, yeah, there is a little bit of, I don't know if you're like thinking about it as like strategy day to day, but like there is a strategy to being able to focus in on the kinds of projects that you want to focus in on. And sometimes that means building the infrastructure in a way that allows you to do that in a very specific kind of way. And that makes a lot of sense to me.
As an actor will also know, I work in that same kind of job capacity as an actor, right? In which I have to constantly find my next gig. They're not, I may work on a very popular TV show that is going to have a third season, but I haven't worked on it since April of last year, and I don't know when we're going to go back. I have to have another job, right? And in recognizing that I am somebody who has had a successful career, I also want to be very clear and honest for the people who do struggle on a day-to-day basis that I was also unemployed for a year and almost lost my insurance this year.
Yeah.
So success in this industry does not always mean success and feasibility and being able to live and sustain. So the other part of my business model is the unknown. I have to, because I am just me. So again, you can look at the benefits of having several people in an office, and you have a group of people who can go out and generate more work, right? And you have that more of that support system. But I also have to think about what happens between me and my husband if I don't have a job for 6 months, or I don't have a job, And granted, I have only had one experience with such a long period of time. It's not uncommon to say, like, have 3 months off, right?
Yeah.
And that's both a good thing if I can plan well to know, I'm going to have these breaks and I need to take advantage of them and do the other things I need to do to restore mentally, physically, creatively, in between making money, because there's no one else helping with that and bringing that in, right? As me, as an individual. And I have people that I work with and I have people who come back to me, but there is no job stability in this industry, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, I guess go back to the point, you have to look at yourself and say, this is success, right? This is, how do I look at what my success is? Do I look at what my bank account looks like? Do I look at what my projects are? Do I look at their accolades? Do I look at my accolades? Do I just look at successful casts that have gone out and projects that have made money? And I think as artists, we all have to find those places of how to measure our success in this industry, because it isn't always as clear as, or cut and dry as, you have 2 Emmy nominations, you must have no trouble getting work. And it's like, no, actually, I still have trouble getting work because I'm not what you would say is the A-list casting director. I'm the B-list casting director, and I'm okay with that. And I was really okay with it when there was so much work, because there was plenty of work to then come in. But now that there is not enough work, I'm still a B-list casting director, and the things aren't coming down.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Just like in an actor looking for a lead role, depending on where you are in your career, other people have to pass on the role in order for it to get to you.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're not extremely talented and good at your job. It just means for whatever reason, they seemed like a better fit for the, could just be because they know you're going to sell tickets, whatever it is. They went to these other people first. And then you end up with the job and you kill it and you nail it and it's wonderful, right?
Yeah.
But the next job still has to go and decide who they're going to go to first, right?
Correct.
And in casting, especially because we're no longer in the room, it's almost as if, we went from actors being like, if you were in a TV show, you were essentially, you could only be in one show at a time, right? You were like owned by the show and like nobody else could essentially put you in another show, right? So now that we're not necessarily in auditions every day, the capacity for more work is there, right? We have more time in our day to essentially do more work. So it would be the same as a lead actor essentially taking on 2 or 3 lead roles at a time because they have the time to, right? And so as that then trickles down, there are less roles for other people because the top people remain available when in other times they wouldn't have been.
Yeah. You're naming so many things that I want to touch on. One is just the freelance aspect of what it is that you do, and the way that it mirrors, an actor, a director, like, so many of us in the industry. And that's, again, why I have these series so that people keep hearing it, in different forms, and recognizing that in this ecosystem that we all live, sometimes we feel like we're on an island by ourselves. And it's a reminder that, like, many of us, although we're doing it differently, we're all operating under a very similar system, and to remember, hopefully, give more grace then to others around, the way in which we're all showing up, because we're all in a version of our own hustle to make ourselves be able to thrive and live. Is like a really big thing. The second part that you named of the success of it all, I've talked about this so many times over these 130 episodes that we've done or whatever, around this idea of success, right? We hear this word, and when everybody hears it, they hear something different, and then we associate something with that word, and really like getting clear for yourself as to what that success is for you. And you named like 5 different versions of like, is it the money in my bank account? Is it the accolade that now I have a nomination for an Emmy? Is it the fact that I have my name is with a very successful, I'm going to just name drop it because no one has said it yet so far in, 20 minutes of this episode, of like Severance. Like, people know that show, like, that I was the one who brought in these people, and, I was the one who watched Britt Lauer's tape that's going viral. Like, I was the one who did, like, is that considered success? Like, this idea that so many of us have our version of success placed on another person, and then that's one version, and then there's the separate of like, well, what does it feel like for me? So naming that, I think, is a really incredible reminder of like, ultimately you have to be the one who's sitting in your own skin, and being comfortable and proud of the work that you are doing, and so
perfect example I think is like Tramell Tillman, right? Not to he is now nominated for an Emmy and Best Supporting Actor in a Drama, right? And I don't want to take anything away from what he has done to the role, right? Because all I did was respond to the email from his manager, which we went back and found. We discussed a couple different roles, brought him in, had him tape, worked with him in the room on Milkshake, did a call back with Ben Stiller, and now he's on the show and he's doing the most incredible work. In his 2nd season, he's getting nominated, right? And so that is him. That is him and all of his talent, right? But for me, I choose to, again, not to take away from him, see that as my success as well. And I have to look at it and say, we have actors in almost every single category of the acting Emmy nominations, right? And multiples. I think in one category, it's all Severance and White Lotus, right? And look at it and say, okay, that is the success of the performance of these actors, but that is also my success that I helped put them in those roles so that they could succeed. And so I think, going back to your point, is we're all looking for this mix of opportunity, but also for the jobs that are right for us, right? Because I will fully admit that every job that comes to me are not jobs that I should take, right? For various reasons. Maybe it's really important that there is a Spanish speaking casting director, or maybe it is very important that there is a gay casting director, or just someone who is not a straight white woman, right? There are a bunch of reasons as to why I should look at something and say, okay, this shouldn't be my job, right? But I don't often even get to that point, because we both need the combination of opportunity and then correctness from rightness for us, and to be the best person for the job. And we're not getting both of those things together, right? And that is often the struggle of being the independent, is getting the opportunity, right? Just even getting in the room to get the meeting, to get the audition, to get the whatever it is, to say, hey, this is why I think I'm right for this. And so that is one of the hardest parts, I think, about across the board is getting in the room, right? It's not to quote Hamilton, but it's the room where it happens, right? And if your name isn't mentioned in the room, you don't get to be involved, right? And so I think for your own sake, I mean, I was a performer at one time. I knew myself enough to know that the life of an actor was not going to be good for me and my psyche. And yet at the same time, I'm still in this position of needing to sell myself and put myself out there as me, right? As my own being and what I can bring to the table. And yet there are no job boards. There is no breakdowns. There is no actors access. All I can do is, kind of cold email and, same as an actor, beg for generals, right? Looking and trying to see.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Like, how are you getting into, obviously now with this success, I would imagine there's a little bit more of like the buzz, and maybe people who didn't know your name prior to this now do. But how in the past or now currently, like, how are you putting yourself in that position? Do you like give yourself, a couple hours a week, or do you have like a day that you're like, this is my cold email day? Do you just, do you ask friends to like introduce you? Like, what are you doing to get yourself these meetings or to meet these people?
The irony is, in 20 years, the last 5 years have been the hardest, right? Because I spent a good, 12 years mostly working for other people before I decided to just try and do my own projects, whether that was working with somebody else, but make myself say I'm going to be a casting director and not take associate positions anymore. Because there was the trickle down. And so the last 5 years with this shift has been the hardest of my career. And so especially, as I said, being out of work for a year, and you don't go into it but knowing that it's going to be a year. That was kind of my thing, was doing the research, plotting out all of the people that I wanted to try and meet, and cold emailing them and tracking essentially when was the last time I emailed them, and looking back and being like, okay, it was a month. Now I can email this person. So like getting up in the day and being like, who can I follow up with? Okay, not there, not that. Okay, they never responded. All right, they did, and so I will say what has happened and the gratefulness I have for the season 1 Emmy nomination. And I have to mention the incredible Rachel Tenner, who brought me into the world of Ben Stiller 12 years ago on The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And we did Escape at Dannemora together. And then when we were coming into Severance, she was like, I want to bring you in and I want to bump you up to the casting director. You're going to be the New York casting director on this show.
Yeah.
And so and so grateful to her for bringing me into this experience. But what I have gotten from the first Emmy nomination is getting into those meetings, right? Of the people, for me, it was about exploring the various casting executives at the different networks and studios and streamers, because I hadn't made those connections yet, because I was always just like very respectful of who I was working for, and that these people were their connections. And maybe to a point of, and just because I don't know how to say this in any other way, maybe a little too respectful, and that I should have said, hey, who I am, and stayed in touch with these people. Because now 20 years in, or at that point, 18, 19 years in, I'm cold reaching these people and, saying, and it was very interesting that it just in the email and sending an email out and I had the nomination, right? So this was after being able to already say, giving my, having that extra title, Emmy-nominated casting director, cold emailing people and just saying New York-based casting director, not getting a lot of responses.
Yeah.
But literally just changing the subject of the email and saying Emmy-nominated New York-based casting director. And it was stupid of me not to just automatically put that in, right? Like, why are you holding this back?
Not stupid,
just
but there's like a humility to it.
Because it's, and why? We are not in an industry of humility.
Yeah. Correct.
Right? So that's shame. That's why I say shame on me. Because here I am trying to be like, oh, just like meet me, and it's like, no, what does this industry care about?
Yeah.
That's what they're going for. Mm-hmm. So while to me, I want it to help me get more work. To them, that's why they put shows together and do all that. And great to say, nothing against the people that I met with, because everybody has been absolutely amazing. But it was just the thing that needed to happen to get through the email inboxes of people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's really
wild. So that is the kind, I think the thing that I have to say is like, we're not in an industry of humility. So just go ahead and sell yourself, right? Just go ahead and do it. And I think with a lot of actors, they do not have that trouble, right? It's almost like be real as opposed to selling yourself, right? Let's be a human. And I'm being too much of a human and need to be a little less about it and just be like, look, I'm really good at my job, and here I prove it. And most of the time I was hearing back from people saying, why do I not know you?
Yeah. Correct. You're bringing up, I appreciate how candid you're being. So thank you.
No, I don't know how to be any other way. So
no, I know. And it's why you're in this space. Truly. That's like why you're here, because that's how I communicate. And it's the kind of people that I want to be associating myself with. And it's the industry that I want to be a part of. Right. Like unfortunately, for better or for worse. Yeah. Like I signed up to be a part of this ecosystem that as you just named, it's like, there's a lot of competing ideas around like what is quote unquote good or what we need to be celebrating. And I don't know if I fully subscribe to that. And yet, because I'm a part of this industry, I have to be a part of that in my own way and find my way through that. And you're naming exactly what that is, which is like you have to own who you are in a way that also recognizes the world that we're living in and the ecosystem that is around us, while also honoring you and what works for you and showcasing and highlighting the parts of yourself that you don't need to be ashamed of. And also, I don't like to say like play the game, but if you're knowing that this is the thing that's going to get you in the room so that they can meet who you are as a human being, then ultimately like that is what you need to be doing in order to be like, okay, let me get this out of the spam for a second so that at least you can see like, oh, I exist.
Correct.
Which is
it's not time to be human until you're with the human. And I think so often you try to human, and because, I can tell I am talking to a fellow human in a very inhumane industry, right?
Yeah.
And so while we don't want to lose ourselves, we also have to be able to exist and be a business, right? Because we're humans in a business. And we want to remain humans, but we also have to have a business. And so, it is about like, okay, now is not the email is not the time to be like, this is me and my personality. The email is the time to be like, I'm really fucking good at my job. This is what I've done. This is like, look at these, The other thing that I kind of did recently, which I think has been really helpful. So and was really just a simple thing to do was move any sort of accolades on my resume to the top. I had them at the bottom. And like, I'm very happy with my credits. People look at my credits and go like, oh yeah, you've worked on really, really great project. But again, we're in a business that doesn't care as much about that as they do about, oh, look at these things, right? That I'm proud of, but don't define me, because at the end of the day, what I want is another job.
Yeah. And you want to do the work, and you want to do the work well. Like that is the thing, and I'm also, as an independent casting director, it's to do the projects that you are enjoying because that's your time. Like,
oh,
hopefully.
exactly. No, exactly.
Yeah.
Like being able to work on something that I actually like in a project I like is no, that is the creativity, right? So when I say I want another job, it's also because I want to create my art, right?
Correct.
I'm not in it's hard because on a base level I think of myself as like populating worlds. It's not really something I can do off the job, right? I think as an actor or even as a director, you can kind of find ways to find different outlets. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could just like, I'm trying to think of like, I could just like ponder my way of like how I would recast something or, so the things, unfortunately, that I have to do is like consume more content, right? If I don't have a job, then my job is to then continue to find new people and add to the mental database or the actual database of actors that I love. And so, that is a hard thing of like, my creativity is in the building of populations. And so when I don't get to do that, it's not like I could do, I mean, I'm not really, I guess I could Sims, but
that's what I was thinking of. I was like, you're going to be video gaming and creating worlds. That's really,
my best friend
I think there is
actually
something there.
just got me onto this video game. I'm not like a Nintendo Stream user or anything, but I found it on my computer. It's called The Cult of the Lamb. And you have little animals and you build a cult and they have to worship you and you can sacrifice them and you can bring them back from the dead and you can send them on little missions and they're like these cute little satanic animals.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. That is one way that you could spend your time. I'm hoping that maybe that is a moment and maybe that is for you at some point. But I'm hoping that, you can continue building worlds. Have you been using the same monologue for years? Are you gearing up to apply for BA, BFA, or MFA programs and need pieces for that process? Or maybe you just have no idea where to even start with monologue hunting? I get it. And that's why I offer monologue sourcing. This is a unique process where I find monologues chosen specifically for you. So many artists pick pieces based on external labels like type or for roles rather than finding material that represents who they truly are. So here's how it works. We'll meet virtually and you'll share all about who you are, your passions, values, beliefs, and everything in between. Don't worry, I will help guide you through this process. Then I'll get to work finding monologues that fit you like a glove. With years of experience sourcing pieces for hundreds of artists, I've seen the difference it makes to have a monologue that genuinely feels like you. So, if you want to feel empowered about the monologues you bring into rooms and use for auditions, I would love to help you find them. And because you're a listener of the Empowered Artist Collective podcast, I'm offering an exclusive rate. Head to empoweredartistcollective.com/podcast promo to register and claim the special offer. That's empoweredartistcollective.com/podcast promo. I cannot wait to help you find monologues you absolutely adore. In the world of so many self-tapes, in the world of people submitting and self-submitting and their reps submitting for you, and I know it's like a touchy question and certainly around the incredible, I guess you can say, community communication around Brit's tape. I'm curious for you, as you're in this world watching a lot, what are some of the things that you really respond to in a self-tape? What are some of the things you respond to generally in an audition when an actor is, preparing and doing their work? What is ultimately the thing that you're quote unquote looking for, which I know is like a bizarre, it's not tangible, but.
I hope I don't forget what you just asked, because the one thing that I do want to say is, somebody actually messaged me, an actor that I know pretty well, and was like, about Brit's tape, and it was like, did you guys ask for her to be like to people to shoot against the floor or do these things? And because I think a lot of people get very caught up in like trying to stage a scene.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, you can look at Brit's tape and you can see all of that. And then I think the answer to his question was, well, I know what it was. No, we didn't ask for that. We just asked, we want to see you and we want to hear you. But knowing what that scene was, which you can watch, it's basically the opening of the entire show. She made a decision based on what she felt like was going to work best for her as an actor in the moment to shoot the scene. And that's as simple as that should be, right? For her, because she had to wake up on essentially a table and create half of this on a table, it doesn't seem like she had somebody really like shooting for her. But like she wanted to create an intimate situation and that worked best, right? That is not something that casting directors expect you to do, but create a visual perspective, right? Mm-hmm. We expect you to create a character perspective. And those are the things that stand out on a self-tape, because the hardest part about all actors doing all of these self-tapes is that we're no longer being able to give you direction and redirection with your tapes, right? And I feel for actors, because I see you guys, and I hope this sounds good, but I see you as beautiful clay, right? And you have all of this potential and strength and surface can fill all of, what a director needs you to fill, right? But you have to have some sort of molding or idea, or be given some sort of direction of what shape you're supposed to be in, right? And so, as a casting director, I'm trying to think of advance and say, because it used to come so naturally, right? I'd see a bunch of people for a role, and by, first and second people, but generally by the third person, exactly what direction needs to be given to each character. It just becomes obvious. Now, sometimes you might be fine tuning each actor's that's the redirection, right? But you kind of get into a role of like, okay, here's what you're going to need to know in order for me to know that you're in the right place. I know what you're missing, right? Here's the backstory. Here's whatever directorial tone, whatever that is. Here's what you need to know as an actor before you do this scene. And then let's see if we need to adjust how you approach it, right? Mm-hmm. So as a casting director, I'm trying to be better about thinking ahead to those things and saying, what do I think this direction is going to be? Problem solving in advance. What would be in-room direction then be, right? What I can't do, of course, is redirect. So the important thing, I think, for an actor doing a self-tape is just to pick a strong perspective and go with it. In the idea that if you were right for the role, we can then show a director and say, look, this just needs a redirection. Right. As opposed to, I'm not quite sure if they're right, if they're filling this space. No. This is a cold tape with no direction, and they made a strong choice. Yeah. So I can see whether you or not need to just, if it's a redirection issue, or maybe you're not right for the role. So go ahead and make that strong choice, even if it's wrong, because I would rather it be wrong and you be right for the role, right? Yeah. I'm not going to blame you on your choices, but I will blame you on your lack of choices.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't give somebody direction based off of nothing. You have to give them direction based off of something. And if they've made a choice, then you can give them a correction or a redirect. But if there was no point of view, then where are we going?
Then where are we going? I don't know how to, I can't say, hey, I see what they're doing. I know this actor. I know what they're capable of. They just need a redirect. Or it's very simple for me to say, okay, great. I may have been able to have 40 people tape for this role, but these are the 10 people I think would be worth, setting a chunk of time aside to just give them a quick redirect, right? Yeah. Because I no longer really have Zooms take actually even longer than in-room auditions used to take, right? And so then you're like losing your ability to then watch the tapes that people are taping. So it's we don't have the ability to Zoom everyone that we would want to Zoom. Yeah. Right. Or like do the in-person, because it all takes much longer. It's actually much more, I think as an actor, it's a lot, it takes a lot more out of you to be present and to communicate and to act over Zoom. And so I know actors have to do it, and that's part of your job of the auditions. And so all I can say to that is turn it to the other side. And what if you were doing that scene, but you were doing it with 30 different people over Zoom?
Right.
Right. And so that's where that repetitive. And so, and then also it's just, you spend a lot of time getting people to a Zoom audition place and not working on actually the structures of the acting, which is why I think that self-tapes are better than Zoom auditions. Because you can control more of the in-room perspective. You control your sound, you control how you look, you have a reader in the room with you that you can look at. But I don't like the stress of actors then being like, oh, I have to have this big backdrop and I have to have sound and I have to, and I'm getting a lot of times where I do jump on a Zoom call and I can tell that there is the computer, like the camera is here, but their computer is here. So even though I'm here to read to them, they're still just staring into a blank camera, which then gives you a complete dissect. Because I don't know if you can act with another person. You're acting with a camera.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's just gotten very convoluted. And I think even more so, you're doing a self-tape, find a perspective. Just got to choose.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to people submitting, whether they have reps or whether they're unrepresented or whether they, found a project that you're working on and, do kind of like a little like, no, don't necessarily call me in for an audition, but like, hi, here I exist of it all. What for you is a helpful way of being communicated to when somebody is trying to pitch themselves for something? What have you found successful in that?
Well, I have a website, www.fifercasting.com. That my email is on the website. I am somebody who is always like, send me a submission. I have an email address specifically for submissions so that you can always send it to me. Generally, I think, after you've introduced yourself to me, you follow up when you have something I can see. Either you're inviting me to come see you or you're saying, here is a link or these things. I've never been a fan of like agents sending me their clients' self-tapes for other projects because I worry about the privacy of the other project. And then as a casting director, if I was like somebody sending their Severance clients tapes out, but like, okay, y'all, I'll sign an NDA and like, is the episode out? And then, anyway, it just sends me down a mental rabbit hole when I'm trying to be present. And yet at the same time, I think, actors may be saying, oh, I didn't audition this, but I have these sides and I just want to do this. And this is just me auditioning. Right. Because I think as actors, in a way that you guys can create to keep your art going is just to act, whether it is an audition, whether it is or going out. Right. You can, take a moment and, read a play and act out a play in your living room. Like maybe it's not real, but it exercises a muscle and keeps you, as an actor, you need to be vocally dexterous, right? So you can't just go into, I'm an introvert. I love to sit alone and maybe not talk for hours and hours at a time. But an actor who isn't working for a long period of time, you can't lose this muscle, right? Yeah. And so you got to just you have to exercise it, and it can't just be your normal speech pattern because acting isn't always your normal speech pattern. So yeah.
Yeah. And for, I guess, going back just like a hair to, we have to see you, we have to hear you. What are your thoughts, though, as to, say, props, say, to an unconventional environment? Obviously, we see a very specific example here. But what are your thoughts generally for people, quote unquote, breaking the rules? Or are there rules at all? Or is it just you need to know for yourself in order to make, to have a point of view? What is the best way to tell this story? And then you are open to it. Like, what is that?
I mean, I think, framing is more important than what's happening behind you or what's in your hand or everything, right? Because we're not in the room with you, right? And so what is more important to me, like I said, see and hear. You have good sound, you have good lighting, and I want you to be about right here, right? And so intention still reads. If you need to pick up your phone and go like this, the intention reads, and you don't necessarily need to be here where I'm seeing it. And so I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is an audition should be a close-up, right? And as an actor, you should know your framing in any scene. so that you know how to act within the scene. And whether the scene on paper would shoot as a close-up, two-shot, whatever,
Right.
your audition is still going to be a close-up. And that is the exercise of auditioning, right? Because it's not what you're going to do on set. It's literally what you're just going to do right here, because we got to be able to see you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to read as much from here in your nuance as I am from here in your nuance. Because on-camera acting is all about this. And it's not about what you're saying. It's about what you're hearing and how you're processing, right? The interestingness of on-camera acting is not watching somebody's lips move. It's watching somebody's process and hear it and laugh or cry, or right? It's the voyeurism of TV and film that we love so much, that we don't get from theater because we're way back here. And they don't get to be as intimate because it won't read from the balcony. And so TV and film is the way that we get so close to somebody that we've never met and watch them go through the human experience in like literally a bird's eye view, right? And so that's what I need to know if you can do. Not, I don't need to know if you can hand something to somebody, right? I don't need to know that you can drink the glass of water. I need to know that you can take the beat. Why did you drink the glass of water? You drank the glass of water because you were stalling. Why were you stalling? Because you needed to think of what you were saying, because you were deflecting, blah, blah. That's what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm obsessed with the, for anybody who did not tune into the video version of whatever just took place, go onto YouTube and watch it, because just even watching, I know you don't self-identify as like an actor, but even just the way you were being so specific with the movement of just to show what you were referring to was so cinematic and clear. And so I think it was a very helpful visual representation of exactly the difference of how things read. And I think, especially for many of us who started in theater and are transitioning into TV film, or, do both, or, have at least a background or training in some sort of theatrical stage space. So often that transition, it shouldn't necessarily be, it's not about big or small, but it's just recognizing what the medium is and what the medium requires of you, and how can you frame it in a way that brings in those elements that are required for a visual medium. I think using that as a helpful reframe versus like, oh my God, all of a sudden now I cannot be so quote unquote big. It's like, no. What is natural and organic?
How much do you let out? That's what it is.
Exactly.
It's how much do you let out? On stage, you got to let it all out. It's got to all come out. It's got to be full part of your physical being, right? And then we get smaller. We get more and more and more internal. But at the same time, the same things in your brain as an actor should be happening. It's just how much you let it out.
Yeah. What do you find sticks with you in the work that you do? Is it, somebody's self-tape that like leaves an impression for some reason? Is it the feeling that somebody gives you when you meet them in a Zoom room? Like when you are going to sleep at night, what are some of the things that energetically you're like, this is what I remember, or like what leaves me with an impression at the end of the day?
Honestly, I just like when somebody looks like they had a good time. So especially when we do get to do like those Zoom callbacks and you just know that somebody felt good about their work. And that was my joy of being in the room, when somebody would even be like, they enjoyed the process, right? Because as we've gone back to, as an actor, you have to find those moments to be able to act, right? And the moments you're going to get the most are the moments in which you're auditioning. And so for me, when somebody just enjoyed acting, in the room with me, and felt like they had a moment of art, that was really like the joy to me. Someone be like, thank you, that was fun. Those were the moments.
I love it.
That's awesome. And that was always the biggest thing for me, was an actor's comfort in the room. I spent a lot of time. I spent 5 years in a very at working for Bernie Telsey and Company, and I did a lot of commercials, which commercials can be You can see up to like 200 people a day because you might bring them in 4 and 5 people at a time, right? And at that point, actors are coming in, they don't always know who's going to be in the room, right? And so for me, it was the best thing when somebody would walk in the room and they would see me, and it would make them happy to see me because they knew they were going to be well cared for. And so I think that's just, I like, I think we all like feedback. And so for me, when I first started doing, like, I do 1-sheets on top of all my sides to try and give direction, to try and give the actor direct information about the role, the breakdown, tone, all of these things. And, and I also provide an email address to the actor to say, if you have questions, this is an email address that you can reach me and I will answer your questions. Yeah. And, when I first started doing those, I just got a really positive feedback because the actors felt supported. Mm-hmm. And my job is to get the best performances out of you, to get you a job. And when you get a job and you do the job successfully, I look good.
Yeah.
And so I need you to be well supported. So it's still the joy to me knowing that an actor felt like they went through the process and still had some sort of connection and a human experience.
Yeah. It also is, it's really beautiful to hear that your process is to just like very explicitly to say, like, I want you to get the job because ultimately, like, that feedback loop is exactly what we're all here for, and I think so many artists sometimes get discouraged being like, well, that, the casting director isn't on my side. It's like, you wouldn't have, how many people submitted for this appointment? You got the appointment. Like, clearly they see something in you and are trying to they believe that you can be the puzzle piece for this, and it makes everybody's lives easier when they feel that puzzle. Like let's all get clear.
I won't say we are as disappointed as you are, but we are also disappointed when you are not right for the role. We want you to solve our problem.
Exactly.
Right? When I get a script, I have however many speaking problems.
Yeah.
And that's just how my brain works. I like to problem solve. So I think of it like, okay, I got 50 speaking problems right now. So I want you to solve my problem, because then my job is easy. And it's like amazing. So whenever I'm watching a tape, whenever I'm seeing somebody in person, when I see you and I know I have at least one option to solve my problem, that makes me so happy. But also, I want you to succeed as you and you, because I was like, I like your look. You feel right. I like your vibe. I want you to be right for this. And it's like, we tried it. It didn't work. That doesn't mean I don't like you anymore. It means I'm going to wait for the next thing that I feel like you're really right for, and we'll try it again. But we go back to the opportunity versus being right for something. And for artists, those things have to coincide, unfortunately. Know that casting directors are on your side, at least most of us anyway, know that a lot of us are struggling in the same way because we're, there's a lot less jobs for us too. And I think another thing, don't be afraid to ask questions. Just ask questions. If people aren't going to answer you, like, just know that maybe they're dicks, but like, try, because there are people out here who are like here and ready to answer your question.
Yeah. I think there's an idea, at least, and I'll speak on behalf of myself, there's an idea of, and again, like, I don't consider myself somebody who, like, I consider myself probably more of like a rule breaker than a rule follower, but there is, like, you don't want to be that person that, like, somehow makes an impression on somebody that they're like, oh my God, this person is insert whatever. And so, the etiquette around asking the questions or, getting the clarity that you need in order to do your best work feels somehow like you're overstepping sometimes. And so that's a helpful reminder.
Asking a question does not mean that you don't know what you're doing. Yeah. It means you're thinking about it and you want clarity. I've never been like, ask the question.
Yeah. I love that. Congratulations on everything that's happening in your life. And simultaneously, I hope that these next 5 years continue to be the easiest years of your career.
Let's hope for all of us, right?
Truly.
No more strikes and pandemics and
Truly. And I'm really excited for, again, as we talk about success and what that is and awards and blah, 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 and what does it mean and yada, yada, yada. But I really am excited that you are getting this recognition, and the people that you have facilitated their opportunities for are also getting their recognition, because I really do believe that, that karma is real, and then that gives people the faith and the trust to reach out to good people, and you're one of them. And so I'm glad that that's happening for you. And so I'm excited, and congrats in advance, and good luck on all the things, but also it doesn't ultimately really quote unquote matter. It's just like being a good person. And
Yes.
with all of that, thank you for giving us the time to hear your perspective as you've been navigating all of it, and the way in which you've been so candid with it and open and vulnerable through all of it. I'm just so appreciative. So thank you.
It was great to be here.
For anybody who wants to follow your work or reach out or see the happenings, where within your boundaries is the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, I have a website, fifercasting.com, and Instagram is @castingbybess.
Obsessed. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to meet you.
That's it for today's episode. I hope you walk away with some fresh insights, feel inspired, and a little more empowered to take the next step on your artistic journey. Remember, whether it's a small shift or a big breakthrough, every step forward counts. You've got this, and we're here cheering you on every step of the way. If you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to hit subscribe so you'll never miss out on the discussions we have each week. And if something today really resonated with you, please leave us a review. It truly is one of the best ways to help other artists find our podcast and join in on the conversations. Plus, we feel the love too when you do. And don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Share this episode with your people or post about it on social media. Be sure to tag @Empowered Artist Collective and @JenniferApple_ so we can see what's landing for you and keep the conversation going. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for being a part of this incredible community. Keep creating, keep thriving, stay empowered. I'm Jennifer Apple. Until next time.